I believe that girls can change the world. That bold statement was how I began a TED talk 7 years ago. And everything that I've experienced in the subsequent 7 years has simply made me believe that even more fervently. And I'm delighted for that we at Safara have a real focus on giving adolescent girls the education that they deserve, to see them as young people with immense potential, which can be unleashed through education, a quality education that affirms and values them, that gives them a voice. And so I could tell you many stories of the past 20 years that I have had the privilege of working alongside grassroots NGOs in India, of girls like Babita, who has trained to become a teacher, who went to Kaplani High School, of girls like Chandani, who trained to become a master trainer, even though her family was very anxious about the thought of her doing work like that. And many, many other stories could be told. Girls in tribal areas like Fulishwari and Shirin making such a difference in their communities. And yet we know that the past 18 months have incredibly impacted poor communities around the world. We know that globally, girls and women have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And particularly school closure has had a huge impact, impacting the opportunities of children to get an education, losing out possibly a year or more of education, especially for those who don't have access to smartphones or telephone networks. Schools don't just provide education, they often create safe spaces where girls can be safe from child marriage, from trafficking, from gender-based violence, and all sorts of exploitation. And so now that schools are starting to open up again, we are determined to protect these girls by encouraging them back into school, by giving them the education that they deserve. And so I'm really pleased that our Safara partners have come up with all sorts of innovative ways in order to get girls back into school and back into safety. And so today I want to share with you stories directly from 3 young women that we are working with who are making an incredible difference in the communities around where they live. The first one is Lakshmi, who is working in South India. She is running classes for girls in tribal villages and other impoverished communities. And I know you will find her a total inspiration.
Hi everyone. So I'm Lakshmi and I've been working as an EcoFem Pad for Pad partner where we work with adolescent children. And for me, my experience of working as a menstrual health educator in the rural communities here has been both enlightening in terms of the kind of problems that young children face even today. We are in a time where we speak much about women empowerment and we speak much about conservation practices, but when it comes to grassroots level communities, we see that we still have taboos where children as young as 11 years and 13 years are forced to sleep outside of their homes in a separate area when they are menstruating. So the kind of work that we do and the kind of immensity of the work that we do is when we realize that we're talking to young girls who are facing the issues of discrimination even at this point in time. So we have so far had classes for children which were primarily focused on educating them about their bodies and what is the anatomy and how periods are not impure as they've been made to believe. And the most beautiful part of the MHM programs is when we see young girls coming in as like very timid and they're not able to open up and going out saying like periods in a very loud voice and very proud of the fact they're menstruating. So And particularly when we are working in marginalized communities, we see that when they have an opportunity to learn about their body and how the very reproductive system works, it's very empowering for them, because it gives them an opportunity to exercise their voice, that they can say, like, this is what is happening, because it prevents, in a way, it prevents their exploitation, is what I have come to understand, because of the communities that we work in. Those of you who are familiar with me know that my mom was a social worker. She was working with the forest department in tribal communities particularly. So we've seen that a lot of cases of sexual abuse and of unwanted pregnancies were happening in the community, because people have been so silent about menstruation. The girls do not know what happens. Like, they just know they start bleeding, so they don't know that they are of reproductive age. So when they are sexually abused, it takes almost a month or more, or they don't know that they're supposed to get their periods every month. So it leads to situations where our public health hospital, we have a PHSC here, and the doctor was telling me that we have cases where girls who are 5 months pregnant come for an abortion. So which is very problematic because of the health risk associated with it. When we work in this area of menstrual health awareness, I think it is far more profound than we imagine, because in rural communities this is very lacking. So it's really, I find it an honor that I'm able to use my education and the kind of cultural capital that I have been given to somehow work towards a certain equality in my society, where at least education is being offered to everyone. At least everyone has an opportunity to access knowledge about their bodies, their very own bodies, and how it functions.
Another aspect of the work that Lakshmi is doing is around sustainable menstruation. And our partner Ecofam, for whom she is an ambassador, makes these amazing sanitary pads, which are made by local women out of organic cotton. They are washable, reusable for up to 5 years. And we have been really blessed by being able to be part of giving these kind of pads out to well over 1,000 girls during the past few weeks. It is really fantastic, because obviously a huge issue with disposable pads is dealing with the rubbish that is generated by them. And particularly during the pandemic, that had a really huge environmental impact. So I want to introduce you now to Nikki, who actually works for Ecofam, and she is a fantastic young woman who is also full of passion and inspiration, and she will tell us a little bit more about the work of Ecofam.
We work in a country where menstruation is considered a taboo. The woman is considered dirty, impure, and a lot of movements restricted if she is menstruating. Coming from that reality, in our sessions, we really aim to open up spaces where menstruation can be considered healthy and a normal process. During these sessions, we use interactive methods and tools to really convey our key messages, which include how menstruation works, the biology of it, menstrual and reproductive health, to look at menstrual cycle literacy, and also do a product analysis with menstrual products in the market today.
ഇതെന്നത് ഇതെന്നത് തമിഴിൽ സത്തமா சொல்லணும் ഇതെന്നത്
Self-knowledge and observation is very, very important for us. We really want the girls to move away from looking at menstruation as something abstract to relating it with the changes in their own bodies.
Girls are learning about their body, about sustainable menstruation, and if they wish to use cloth pads, they can. They receive a kit of 4 pads with a pouch and a booklet that contains the information they got during the session.
At the end of the session, the girls take an oath to share what they have learned with at least one other person. continuing this breaking of the silence around menstruation. Before the session starts, the girls are shy, they're closed up, very hesitant to talk. And at the end of it, it's the curiosity that space is there. Those moments can be great when they come out with so many questions that they're so curious about, then they trust that I can answer it. I feel that can be quite powerful.
இப்போ நம்மளுக்கு ஏதாச்சும் ப்ராப்ளம்னா நம்ம டாக்டர்கிட்ட போவோம். அப்போது அவங்க கேட்பாங்க, இதெல்லாம் உங்களுக்கு இருக்கா, இதெல்லாம் உங்களுக்கு இல்லையா அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு நம்ம எதுக்காக இருந்தாலும் மண்டையை ஆடிட்டு இருப்போம். அப்போ அதுக்கு இல்லாமல் இதை நம்ம டேட்லாம் குறித்து வச்சோம்னா இது இத்தனை நாளைக்கு நம்மளுக்கு வருது, இத்தனை நாளைக்கு நம்மளுக்கு வரலை, நமக்கு இப்படி அதிகமாக வெள்ளப்படுது, கம்மியாக வெள்ளப்படுது அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு நம்ம சொல்லும்போது அது நம்மளே பற்றி நம்ம தெரிஞ்சு வச்சுருக்கோம்ல, அந்த சக்தி நம்மக்கிட்ட இருக்குது.
Our final young woman that we're going to hear from is Angana. Angana works for Project Kale, which provides education in a non-formal setting to many young people in the large city of Lucknow, which is in North India. Angana is just as passionate and as committed as the women we've already heard from. And she is going to tell us a little bit about the challenges of doing menstrual health education in a way that really engages adolescent girls, that doesn't scare them off. When you have something that is very much a taboo, a matter of shame, a matter of silence, then it really takes some significant work to break through that. And that's the kind of work that Safara is passionate about through our Girl Champions program, where we help girls understand their own bodies, but at the same time also understand that many of the myths and taboos that they've been exposed to really aren't true. And so you will hear now from Angana how she goes about this, how she gives girls the confidence to be able to talk about their own bodies, to be able to understand what is going on. And actually these things give girls power over their own bodies in a way that really does help protect them from exploitation and all sorts of other abusive situations. So let's hear from Angana now.
So we figured one of the biggest mistakes we were making was to start our session by saying, today we are going to tell you about something very important, something that you should know as a girl. So the context that we were setting, we tried to make it so serious that it scared out the girls. They were worried, what is this new information that I'm going to learn now as a teenager, which no one's ever told me before. And that fear actually closed their minds towards receiving all the information that we were giving. And apart from that, another mistake we figured we did, which we immediately tried to rectify during this period, was that we treated periods as a standalone issue, that we felt that girls don't know about periods, so we need to tell them about periods. But turns out that periods is not a standalone issue. There are so many intersectionalities over here. It is to do with the kind of shame that is injected in young girls, and it is to do with the definition of a good girl and a bad girl and the kind of topics they talk about. It is to do with the understanding that a young girl has about her body, where she feels her body is actually like a drain that clears out the dirty blood. So when there is so much of negativity around the issue itself becomes equally negative in a young girl's head. So what we did about this is we immediately started working on our curriculum. So for the last about 7 years, our curriculum is super fun. It is packaged with a lot of humor. There's a lot of stand-up comedy happening. And if you visit any regular Project Kale's Red Spot sessions, you're going to see young girls and women just screaming out of the top of their heads, vagina, or maybe periods, or maybe penis, because we figured that once we're able to laugh and talk about something, it creates a sense of positivity. It re-establishes a sense of sisterhood in the group, in the community, that makes them feel better about their bodies, that makes them feel better about the use of certain words. And also the entire aspect of empowerment, to be able to call your vagina a vagina, or to be able to call your periods a periods, and not by code name is also impactful. So we figured that once we started tackling with the self-esteem issues related to shame, encouraging young girls and helping young girls to learn to question, and encouraging women to break the cycle of oppression. How do you realize that yes, you were violated, sorry, that you were oppressed by your mother-in-law or your mother, and you're doing the same to your daughter, to your daughter-in-law? How do you realize that and back off and discontinue? You break the chain, you break the cycle of oppression within your own families. And by the end of it, when we talk about flow management, we do not tell them this is what you should do and that is what you should not. We list out all the products that are available in their market, we let them know the pros and cons of it, and we end the session on the note that it is your body, it is your life, you decide. We do not need to tell you what is good for you. And I feel that that note becomes very empowering for young girls, because they see themselves from the eye of this educator who's coming and telling them that you are smart enough and confident enough to know what you want and you decide for yourself. So that sense of validation adds as this extra push for young girls to make something good out of this experience.
I'm sure, like me, you have been inspired by those three young women. We know that girls being educated greatly reduces the risk of child marriage, of having babies at a young age, of infant mortality in their children. We know that educating girls to value themselves, to understand their own bodies, really is the way to change the world. And we know too, in these days of concern for climate crisis, that educating girls is also a way to deal with that huge challenge that is facing us globally right now. And so I want to invite you on the International Day of the Girl Child to join with Safara and our partners, EcoFam, Sneha, MGBS, all those working in the tribal areas. I want you to invite them to empower girls through education, to enable girls to know their value and worth, and to let them loose on the world so that they can indeed change it. Thank you.